Hey, what's up YouTube? Today I'll be giving my review of Final Fantasy XIV as a new player on a trial account. I recently beat ARR, just kind of leveling up my other side classes now of the land in hand. But before we get into this review today, if you guys could hit the like button if you like the video after watching it, hit the dislike button if you don't like it, and if you guys subscribe to the channel, it helps out a lot, helps with the algorithm, getting those numbers up there. And also, if you guys want to watch me live on Twitch, link will be in the description below, but it's also at twitch.tv/heroes_Mike. Let's get into the review here. So first thing I'd like to review is the story mode, or MSQ for ARR for Final Fantasy. As a new player for me, not new to Final Fantasies, but Final Fantasy XIV, I felt like this story mode actually kind of was the start of like how any other Final Fantasy was, where it's kind of slow at the beginning. There's a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue, which is great and everything. But for an MMO, it is kind of drawn out, especially with like the quest of, go to A and B and just talk to them 3 times to complete the quest. And half the time, the stuff you talk with that person isn't really, the greatest story development, because you don't really talk to that person ever again. It kind of just leans you forward into, unlocking your chocobo and whatnot. But, like any other story mode, for Final Fantasy, at the end, it kicks up like crazy. And this does the exact same thing. I thought the last few missions that they had in here were fantastic. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I absolutely love the ending of this game. I didn't really skip any cutscenes in this game because I kind of wanted to indulge myself with what was going on. But I feel like you could skip a lot of these cutscenes early game, up until around the halfway point, where you probably won't really miss much, to be honest, by the time you get to the end of the game. I did enjoy it though. I like the story mode. I've read the reviews of what it was before, and I'm kind of glad I waited to play this game, because it sounds like it was a disaster the first time playing this, before the calamity and everything for this. But other than that, I love the story. Born at the very beginning, especially for an MMO, but that's just like every other Final Fantasy, slow at the beginning, really high pace and action at the end. Next, I'd like to talk about the progression system. I really did like the progression system in Final Fantasy XIV for leveling up with the MSQ. I didn't really do any side quests, because I didn't really feel the need to do any side quests, because half the time when I was doing the MSQ, my character was super over leveled, especially when I would just randomly fish for like 4 or 5 hours on end on the side. By the time I got back to leveling up, my character would just fly up in levels for my Dragoon. I did like that there wasn't that many skill checks of, you have to wait 5 levels before you can, do this quest. Kind of like how if you play New World will have that a lot, where you get so far in the story mode, and then story mode missions, kick up like 4 or 5 levels, and you're just sitting there spending 3 hours of your time leveling up for doing useless quests and getting useless items. Other than that, the MSQ, I did like the discipline of the land and hand skills. I wish in the actual story mode though that they would tell you to actually pick these up early on. They kind of hint that, hey, if you want to try them out, you can. I wish they actually made you pick one up at that point though, because you get to try it out. You get to see that each of these skills actually do work off of each other, which I'm learning now. And it's nice because once you hit level 20 and you for the spoiler here, get into your grand company at level 20, each day you have the timer duty that you can turn in. And you might get lucky with the bonus XP. You get a few levels, for 5 minutes of making one item. It's really nice. I wish I would have done this earlier. And this is the only part that I wish they would have kind of held my hand through. Instead of giving you like, hey, maybe you want to do this. They kind of force you to do other stuff. You might as well just force me into one of these classes as well. But other than that, the progression I thought was good. I like that this dungeons, they kind of slowly teach you how to play the game, instead of just like throwing you into a tutorial the first 5 minutes of playing, then you forget half the shit that they talk about. I like how the first one is very simple, then it kind of ramps up, and then by the time you get to end game, it takes everything that you learn from the MSQ dungeons that you had to do and kind of puts it all together into one. It makes it where you need to understand your skills, your abilities, how to stay alive and how to kill these bosses. And I think that's really helpful. For a new player, I mean, I came from the WoW expansion from, you know, RuneScape and whatnot, so I kind of understand these things, and it's kind of easy to grasp once you understand it. But for new players who never played a MMO, I felt like this is a really easy way to kind of push them in the right direction without just throwing it in text all on the screen on, you know, do XYZ items, right? The only thing, not the only thing, I'm gonna cut that out. But the thing that I really enjoyed the most was the addition to dungeons. I wish WoW did this when I first started playing, of having NPCs enter in the dungeon with you. I absolutely thought that was fantastic. I joined the first dungeon as a roulette, and I waited 25 minutes trying to, you know, get into the dungeon, and I'm like, man, this is fucking boring just sitting here waiting. And it's like, oh, you can join the NPCs. Oh, I'm in there within 3 seconds. I beat the dungeon in 15 minutes. You know, by the time I beat it, I would have still been looking for a group as a DPS role. So I really liked how they added that in. I think that was just recently, actually, that they did put that in there. But that was a really great thing to put in. It also will help out new players, I think, you know, especially being a tank. You don't know these dungeons if it's your first character. So running with NPCs who don't really give a shit if you get lost for a half hour, 45 minutes. It's a great way to learn these maps, and I can't wait to start my tank character or job class on my character, and, you know, run through these dungeons and actually learn these things. Because right now I'm just kind of fucking shit whipping through it, not really understanding where I'm going, and just completing the objectives to get it over with. Other than that, some lessons learned that I had that I wish other YouTubers were to tell me. I didn't really watch any YouTube videos before I started playing. But I did watch a few after I, you know, beat the story mode, because I didn't want to have any spoilers or anything like that, or people, you know, saying you must do this, you must do that, and it kind of ruins my experience. I kind of want to just take it all in at once and then just kind of play. And I didn't really even see this in the videos that I looked at, but like how I kind of hit before, I wish it would kind of force you a little bit into picking a discipline of the land or hand, because the little text that you get when you start the game, you kind of just click through it. You know, they tell you so early on in the game, you don't really know what that is. You're like, oh, 10, you know, it's all right, I guess, but it would have been nice to like say, hey, this is what it does, this is how you work it, this is what you do, right? Just one little quest or so. Because as I'm doing now, as you'll see, if you join the live streams, you know, I have all my Discipline of the Lands leveled up now. They're all like around level 20. You know, that would have been fun just to do throughout the time of MSQs and not wait until after the game, even though it is easier because I can fly now to do this. But these could have been like level 40 or 50 if I would have started out with these with the Grand Company quest as well, just doing the daily turn-ins like that. The last lesson I learned was to not always rely on the gear that you get from completing quests, or even the dungeons that you get as well. Once you hit around levels 16, 28, 36, and 48, it's kind of like where the cutoff points are in ARR at least. You can go to a vendor and buy gear. I think I went through the majority of this game with very low level gear until I hit level 50 in my Dragoon, and they gave you the level 50 gear, and that was a huge DPS boost going up. I really wish I would have, in hindsight, it's easy to think, oh, you should have just done that, right? But I didn't really think of it at the time. They don't really kind of like push that, hey, you could buy all this gear from a vendor if you really want to, right? And then kind of where I had the dawning moment of I probably should be doing this was I was level 48 in fishing, trying to do a fishing turn-in, and I had to mooch a fish to get the other fish that I actually needed. I think I sat there for like 30 minutes just trying to catch the large fish at level 45 when I'm 48, and I'm wondering why it's taking so long to actually catch this fish. And I look at my gear, and as a level 48 fisher, I'm using level 18 and 19 gear. I went out, bought the level 48 versions of it from the independent tailor or whatever the hell the guy's called. Got level 48. I caught the fish in 5 minutes. So big thing is buy the gear if you need it. Don't sit there and wait for the quest to hand it to you, or the dungeons to hand it to you. Other than that, my overall rating of Final Fantasy XIV is I've really enjoyed it. I thought the beginning was boring. I almost quit at the beginning just because I didn't care for the story at the beginning, didn't care for the combat system at the beginning. It was very, very boring just sitting there tapping 1 and 2 all the time. But as you got more into it, around level 30, it definitely picks up a little bit. You get to actually use more cooldowns and whatnot. It's a little bit more involving than just sitting there chilling, just hitting the same button over and over and over again. So if you are a new player, you are wanting to get into this game, you just have to get past the initial first hump, which does take a little bit, but you will get through it. And it does get a lot better. And I heard the expansion packs, even after ARR, or what I like to say, R, like to be a pirate, you know. Afterwards, I've heard they're even a lot better than what ARR is. So I'm very, very excited to do, I think it's Heaven's Word or Heaven's Sword or something like that, which is the next one. You know, complete these patch quests, play the next expansion, see how that plays out. Just excited to run like the raids and whatnot that you can do on the trial account, and then hopefully buy my first subscription and all the expansions at the same time. Overall though, I'd give ARR a 7 out of 10. Would be higher if the beginning was more enjoyable, but the beginning you spend so long in because you're so under leveled and you have to run everywhere and you don't really have the guild to teleport like you do later on in the game. So again, if you guys did like this video, you know, please like it, hit the like button. If you hated the video, dislike it, doesn't matter. Both buttons help me out. I get to see both of them, you know, what the dislike to like ratio is. Subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to, follow the Twitch channel. Link is in the description below. And if you guys, you know, want to see other content Final Fantasy 14 wise, you'll also leave a comment below on what you'd like to see, what you'd like to hear about it, and then let me know your opinions of, you know, what you think I said, and, you know, we can kind of debate on, you know, who's right and who's wrong, but I'm always right. And we'll just leave it at that. So other than that, guys, have a good rest of your day, and maybe I'll see you over at the Twitch channel.